All right, so homework 22 starts off with finding the slope of the line if you have the graph. So again, we talked a little bit about slope on the previous pages, that if my line goes like this one, downhill as I go from left to right, I'm going to have a negative slope. If it goes uphill, I'm going to have a positive slope. If my line is exactly straight across in that horizontal line, your slope is 0. And if it's vertical, straight up and down, then you get undefined. So what they're going to tell you here is that, first of all, the symbol M is the symbol for slope. Makes no sense, but that's what it is, and that's why we have y equals mx plus b. M stands for the slope, is that it's the change in the y over the change in the x. Some books will say rise over run. I don't necessarily like the term rise, because to me rise means you always go up, and you don't always go up.
If it goes down, it's negative.
Yeah, that if you go down, it's negative. So the change in y is either up or down. The change in x is either right or left. To me, I always go to the right, because usually I just start on the left-hand side like I read. And so I'm just going to start at this point, and basically I'm just going to count. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 down. So my top number is -3. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right. So my bottom number is +6. So my slope I get is a fraction -3/6. But of course, when we work with fractions, we always want them in simplified form. So a better way would be -1/2. If I went down 1 and over 2, I still touch the line. Down 1 over 2, and so forth. And so basically, here we're just going to count out the slope, change in y on top, change in x on the bottom. And so on number 2, if I'm going to find my slope, if I start on the left-hand point, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 up, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. So if I go up 3 and over 5, my slope is just going to be 3/5. Now, just for fun, if I would have done this the opposite way and started at this point, I would have went down 3 and backwards, or to the left 5. And if I have a -3 over a -5, I still get that +3/5 slope. That's why I always like to go from left to right. Not that you can't go the other way. And so if we find the slope of the line on number 3 and we count out our slope, the first thing you're going to do is what?
Down 7?
Down 7, so -7 over 5. So down 7 over 5 means I have a -7/5 for my slope. The next 3 are ones we talked about when we were graphing, because we talked about slope-intercept form of the line being y equals mx plus b, that the number in front of the m is your slope, because m is the symbol for slope. The b on the end is your y-intercept, and when we graph, we always graph that y-intercept. We put 0 in for x, and then we just got the end number. So here they're just having you look at the equation. I'm looking at this number 5 already. If I look at this, the slope of this line, the number in front of the x is 8. The y-intercept, the number on the end, is -9. So on this one, we just have y equals 1/2. Y equals 1/2 happens to be a horizontal line. If I were to rewrite it in slope-intercept form, I would write it as y equals, and I don't have any x's, right? 0x plus 1/2 then. And so in this case, when I have that nice straight horizontal line, my slope ends up being 0, and my y-intercept is the 1/2. So that was kind of an interesting one she picked to put on our homework page. And sometimes they don't have it in the order that we like it in, but we can still pick out our slope and our y-intercept. The slope on number 6 would be the -9, the one that's in front of the x, and my y-intercept is -6. So we could have written it as y equals -9x minus 6, so it looked prettier, but sometimes it's switched around and same thing. So when we get to 7, 8, 9 and they want us to find the slope and the y-intercept, now we have to rearrange our lines so that we do have it in slope-intercept form. So basically we just want to rearrange it and solve it so the y gets all by itself. So I'm going to move my x to the other side, and again, because it looks prettier, I like to put my x in front of my number, and so I'm going to put 3y equals, since this was a positive 6x, when I move it over I'm going to make it negative 6x, and then I'm just going to slide my -9 down on the end. So 3y equals negative 6x minus 9. I still have to divide by the 3 to get the y by itself. I'm going to divide everything by 3, and so y is going to equal negative 2x minus 3. Now I have it in slope-intercept form, and I can pick out my slope and my y-intercept. So my slope is the one in front of the x, the -2, my y-intercept on the end, minus 3. That's why we did that algebraic symbol manipulation in the other chapter. So if I want to solve number 8 for y, first thing I'm going to do is move my x to the other side, so what would I have? Positive 8. So -4y equals a positive 8x minus 7. Then I'm going to divide everything by -4 and simplify as much as I can. So y is going to equal 8 divided by -4 would be -2x. And here, if I have a negative over a negative, it's going to become positive, but I can't do anything with that fraction, so I'm just going to have -2x plus 7/4. So my slope is the -2, and my y-intercept, the 7/4. We're almost to the end. So number 9, oh, that one's a little easier one to solve for y because I don't have that coefficient in front. First thing I want to do, subtract my 7x. So y is going to equal -7x minus the 2. And on that one, I don't even have to do any dividing. So my slope, -7, and my y-intercept, -2. So number 10 then gives you a graph and wants you to write the equation of the graph. We know that the equation looks like this: y equals mx plus b. So what we want to do is find the slope, and we said we could find the slope by finding the change in y over the change in x, and then we want to pick out the y-intercept, which is easy enough to do. So if I look at that first one, and first of all deal with the slope. Starting at this point, the change in y is going to be -7, right? It's going to drop 7. The change in x, you're going to go 7 to the right, so +7. And if I have a -7 over a +7, I can simplify that into -1. My y-intercept, where does it touch the y-axis?
0.
Well, in this case, it's just a 0, right? So I'm going to plug that into my equation. I'm going to put the -1 in for the m, the 0 in for the b. So now I have y equals -1x plus 0. But we can simplify this one. Most of the time we can't simplify. What's another way of writing -1x?
-x.
Just a -x. So y equals -x, and since it's a +0, we really don't need to have +0 on the end. Anything +0 is what we started with. So the best way to write this line would just be y equals a negative x. So on number 11, if I'm going to write the equation of my line, y equals mx plus b, I'm going to start with my slope. So my slope is the change in y over the change in x. So if I start here, I'm going to go down 2, so negative 2 over 5. So negative 2/5 is going to be my slope. Down 2 and over 5. My y-intercept, where does it touch the y-axis? At positive 4. And so plugging those into my equation, this is negative 2/5 and this is 4. I'm going to have y equals negative 2/5 x plus 4. And then I have the equation of my line. And the last one on here then, write the equation of that line. So y equals mx plus b, my slope. Oh, this time my slope's going to be positive. If I start here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So positive 4 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 to the right. So up 4 over 5 means I have a slope of 4/5. My y-intercept, my b value is negative 1. So I would have y equals 4/5 x. And instead of putting plus a negative 1, if I have plus a negative 1, I can just write it as minus 1. So y equals 4/5 x minus 1. There it is. The end of that homework page.